All right, folks. Call to order and resume our meeting of September the 29th, regular meeting of council. Oops, I got to get into the right agenda. Will be helpful. There we go. Looking for approval of the agenda?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. We have an opportunity here for public participation. If there's anyone in the audience that has something to say to council, now would be your time. And in that I know what most of you are here for, I'll say not and move on.
No.
Mayor's message this evening will be somewhat brief. A number of us were in attendance at UBCM this past week. I think that it was one of the better UBCM events that I've attended to in the number of years. The information sessions and discussion groups and that sort of thing were very informative. So I think that they excelled this time around on what they had to offer for us. So it was an opportunity well spent. We had a couple members of staff that came along with us. So it was a good opportunity for us all to engage. So that was great. On another note, it's a little bit of a sad one. And I want to take time to recognize Daryl Corrigal, one of our firefighter members of 5 years. He passed this weekend with his family, and as the chief passed around, and we do have another notice here, the family has asked, and I'll just read. Daryl left late yesterday evening, surrounded peacefully by love in a room full of those closest to him. They will be in touch with all of us to let us know what the details are when the time comes. Thanking again for friendship, love, support, and pass on to everyone that the family would appreciate and would rather not receive flowers, but those that are compelled can best honor his memory by making a donation in his name to your favorite charity. So our heartfelt condolences go out to Lila and her family, and I know the chief will send that along. So with a glass of water. Anyways, if we could, please move on to the adoption of minutes from regular meeting of council September 8th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Move receipt, please, on a number of minutes. Heritage Commission, June 11th. Emergency Planning Committee, May 20th. Parks, Rec and Culture on June 25th. Planning and Land Use, August 19th. Protective Services Committee, July 9th. Finance and Admin Committee, July 16th. Special Transportation and Public Infrastructure, July 22nd.
Move receipt.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. No correspondence has been late received to take direction on, so we'll move into new business. Protective Services Committee report, Fire Chief, in regards to the replacement of snorkel number 57.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council approved and provided direction to the Fire Chief to proceed with the replacement of Snorkel 57, which is currently 28 years old and well beyond its service life and certification. An RFP document was developed by staff over a period of months and sent out with a closing date of August the 27th, 2014 at 3 p.m. The proposals have now been received and opened as per city policy. Senior staff have thoroughly analyzed the proposals, and a recommendation is provided in this report. Reports have been prepared and recommendations processed through both the Protective Services Committee and Council to reach this point in the process. The replacement of Snorkel 57 has been part of the vehicle replacement plan for many years. The RFP was couriered to 3 active fire manufacturer companies that were pre-selected by the department as being fully capable of building the fire apparatus sought for Colwood. The opportunity to tender was also posted on BC Bid website to be fully inclusive. As of the closing date of Wednesday, August 27th, 3 p.m., 2 proposals were received, as well as 1 no-bid letter. I can confirm that the 2 proponents of the RFP were Rocky Mountain Phoenix of Coquitlam, BC, and E1 Manufacturing from the USA. Fire Department staff have fully reviewed the 2 proposals received, in particular inconsistencies of the 2 submissions as they relate to the RFP, measuring the advantages and disadvantages of each. An email was sent to both manufacturer proponents asking for clarification on specific items within the respective proposals. A response has been received from both, and all questions and concerns have been clarified. A reference checklist was also developed, and several fire departments with similar apparatus manufactured by both Rosenbauer and E1 were queried for their level of satisfaction. Discussion with the acting director of finance discussions have also taken place to discuss funding and best options going forward to procure this important piece of apparatus. In April of 2013, 4 Colwood Fire Department members attended FDIC, the Fire Department Instructors Conference in Indianapolis. This is by far the largest show and conference in North America, and it is held annually. While attending FDIC, 3 of the leading manufacturers were queried to obtain a rough estimate of the cost to replace Snorkel 5.7 just for budgeting purposes. 2 of the manufacturers interviewed indicated that $1.3 million was a safe estimate. At the time, there was only $1.1 million identified in the vehicle replacement plan for 5.7's replacement. Soon after FDIC, the discrepancy was brought forward to the Director of Finance, and the vehicle replacement plan was adjusted to reflect a budget of $1.35 million. At the time of estimate, the Canadian dollar was worth $1.03 US. Currently, the US dollar ratio has done a swing of 13%, and that's added to the cost estimate of the original estimate in 2013. Unfortunately, there are no Canadian manufacturers who are capable of building this piece of apparatus. The bids received from the 2 manufacturers are in Canadian funds. Both are over the $1.35 million budgeted within the vehicle replacement plan, and a breakdown, which I'll let you read through, of all the numbers are attached there. The financial implications, budget versus actual purchase price. The approved budget for this equipment purchase is $1,350,000. This amount was approved for expenditure by Council in July of 2014, upon completion of a successful alternate approval process. The lowest bid of $1,708,059 was received from Rocky Mountain Phoenix. As the city is GST exempt, we removed the GST portion of the quote of $76,253 for a net capital cost of $1,631,806. This results in a $281,806 difference from the approved budget. Options for funding the budget shortfall. The city could finance this equipment 100% through a lease with MFA. Their staff advised that we would have to undertake a second alternate approval process for the budget shortfall amount of $281,806. The city can use funds in a reserve fund designated for this purpose. We currently have $399,367 in a fire hall fleet replacement reserve fund. The 5-year financial plan projects a net increase of $1,267,150 in this fund over the next 5 years prior to the possible purchase. This is the recommended option to cover the shortfall. The lease payments, the annual payment amounts would be $158,343 over a 10-year term, at which time we would then outright own this vehicle for the minimum of the last half of its life. This is at a current rate of 3.4% based on the approved financing amount of $1.35 million. This is a variable lease rate, which is currently 3%. A conservative 3.4% rate was used to cover the potential rate fluctuations. MFA advice on pricing options. In discussions with MFA representatives, they have advised that they will be negotiating the best cash flow alternative directly with the supplier. This is because the lease funds they are providing will be required ahead of Colwood's share of the purchase cost. It is anticipated that no matter which option is selected, progress payments over the construction of the asset or no payments required until completion of the asset, that our funds will not be required until completion of the asset approximately 1 year from now. The following options are presented for consideration. Award the contract for the replacement of Snorkel 57 to one of the proponents listed in the report using a payment method as provided in Section 4 and a cash flow method to cover the budget shortfall as provided in Section 5 of this report. Or do not award the contract to either of the proponents and provide the fire chief with further direction on how to proceed. The recommendation, after conducting a thorough comparison of the two proposals received for the replacement of Snorkel 57, staff have determined that Rocky Mountain Phoenix is the preferred manufacturer in meeting the needs of the Colwood Fire Department. A price quoted in the proposal from Rocky Mountain Phoenix is only guaranteed until October the 6th, 2014, and in light of the time constraint, this report is being submitted directly to Council for consideration. Rocky Mountain Phoenix anticipates a delivery date of 390 days from when the pre-construction meeting is held. If the progress payment option is taken to pay for the new apparatus, the delivery date would also coincide with the final payment late in 2015. The following motion by Council is therefore requested: that tender 2014 S57 issued for replacement of Snorkel 57 be awarded to Rocky Mountain Phoenix, and that the Municipal Finance Authority be authorized to negotiate the best cash flow alternative directly with the supplier on behalf of the City of Colwood, and that once a cash flow method has been determined and the shortfall value is known, that the City of Colwood will provide additional funds not to exceed $325,000, and these funds be allocated from the Fire Department Fleet Replacement Fund when required. And the reason for that $325,000 instead of the $281,000 that was outlined is because there is a fluctuation in the variable rate, and we don't want to have to, again, bring another report back to Council again. So, thank you.
Council?
I am supportive of the motion that our fire chief read. However, I would like council to seriously consider just one additional line to this. And under the last paragraph, I would actually like us to pay this money back to the Fire Hall Fleet Replacement Fund over a 10-year period. And that would be in addition to what our yearly payment is. My rationale for that is, yes, in 5 years we'll have $1.2 million in it, which sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. I mean, you can see we can't even get a snorkel truck for $1.2 million. So I think the needs of this community 10 years from now may outweigh what this fund is actually dropping in right now. So I would hope that council would consider that as well.
Councillor Logan?
Thank you, Worship. I too will be supporting the recommendation, and this stings a little bit because in the past, certainly the city hasn't had an asset an asset management plan, where would see us putting some money aside to deal with future costs, and that was one of the big themes actually at the UBCM asset management plans. And I know, speaking to the CAO, that's right up there on the priority list, and so that's something that's coming down the pipe. So probably what Councillor Martin is suggesting kind of falls within the idea of building up that reserve. So in 10, 20 years when or 25 years when we're looking at replacing the same vehicle, it won't be as much of a hit on the taxpayers. And I understand it works well in other communities that have similar plans. So I know I mean, I think my lucky stars that we overpaid our RCMP costs over a couple of years that enable us to actually have a bit of a reserve fund. But the reality is that Snorkel's had a few too many birthdays and and probably works extremely hard. So we need to do something with it. Thank you.
Any other, Councillor Cullington?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will also be supporting this motion, but as Councillor Logan says, what a shame we have to be here. Be great to see the funds going directly into there. Through the chair to the acting director of finance, I just wondered: if I understand it correctly, we're probably going to be paying this a year from now. I just wondered if, because we're rolling this over into US dollars, is there any opportunity to pay attention to the US dollar going up and down and kind of transfer funds at a time that's most favourable to us?
Through the Mayor, basically we don't have a lot of control over this because the majority of the funding or financing will be going through the Municipal Finance Authority, and I have had several discussions with them. I actually have some new information that I just got late this afternoon from the Municipal Finance Authority, and that is that they will be negotiating directly with the supplier. They already have, and we will be taking advantage of option one, which was the lower amount of money, 1.708 million. And MFA does swing a fair bit of weight, and they have actually negotiated some more favorable sort of payment terms. But our portion of the money is not going to be required until a year, and that will all be done through the MFA, is my understanding. So we don't have a lot of leeway. Like, I'm very happy actually that MFA is doing as much work as they are on our behalf.
And Councillor Day?
Thank you. I too will be supporting the motion in the Chief's report because we have to have the infrastructure here to protect our citizens. But I'm a little concerned when we're talking about replacing the funds. We certainly need to look at our asset management plans when we're looking at the whole picture of the budget, rather than, make sure we put that money back in 10 years. I don't know if 10 years is going to be the number or if 12 years is going to be the number, because there's going to be a careful mix of both what today's residents can afford and what our residents 10 years from now are going to need. So I think we need to look at our asset replacement funding at the same time as we look at our 5-year and 10-year plans.
Anybody else? Were you suggesting, Councillor Martin, that we add on to this, or are you happy with the fact that that part of the conversation would happen at budget time?
What I'm happy to do is, if somebody wants to make the motion, then I'll probably make an amendment asking that the funds be replaced within 10 years, and that way if it fails, then the original motion is carried over.
We have some information from our acting finance director.
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Martin. When your budget was passed last year, there was a very detailed schedule laid out in terms of what the plan was to put into your reserves and to take out of your reserves. And it is actually quite well laid out. So as an example, there's the $399,367 that's in that fire fleet replacement fund. That was at the end of 2013. The plan in 2014 is to put $257,480 in that. And that will take effect for 2014 with no planned withdrawals. 2015, the same amount will go in. The budget made provision for $35,000 of equipment to come out of there in 2015. And in 2016, there was a planned increase up from 257,000 up to 286,000. There was a small withdrawal of 65,000 for some equipment. And in 2017, the plan was to increase the contributions to 312,730. There was a small amount of equipment being purchased of 60,000, and the same amount being put in for 2018. And I actually think that's a very prudent plan that you have in place now in terms of continuing to build the reserve. And, that is definitely part of a larger picture. If you want to put even more money in there, because the situation then will be at budget, where does it come from? Do we take it away from other things? But I wanted to give you some comfort and just to remind you what your plan was on putting money into that reserve.
Councillor Martin?
Thank you. Yeah, I was aware of that plan, and the concern, however, is that for 2014 we did not plan on taking out this 285. So basically, that plan is now behind by $285,000. So yes, I agree with you 100% that it's a prudent plan. My concern is we've now put ourselves in a hole to what that initial plan was. So if we have a 10-year plan to replace the money that we were planning on taking out in 2014, then we stay on track. That's my concern, is that we hadn't budgeted for this amount to come out. So that's just, hence the reason I'm bringing that up. So as I said, I'm happy to, if somebody wants to make the initial motion, I'll ask for an amendment for the 10-year to be paid back, and if that fails, then that way it can still move forward.
I'll move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Discussion on that one? Councillor
Yes,
Martin?
I would like to make an amendment to that motion, please, that the $325,000 that is being removed from the Fire Hall Fleet Replacement Reserve Fund be replaced within a 10-year period of, I don't know if I need to say equal intervals, but just over 10 years. Yeah. So I'll make that motion, or that amendment.
I need a seconder. Discussion on the amendment?
I really feel that we need to talk about budget issues like replenishing funds at budget time, and I'm not comfortable only because there's information, very good information shared with us verbally tonight that I would prefer to have the ability to look at in depth and compare our long-term plans versus where our budget balances are. I have no doubt that very, very possibly we would look at that and say, gosh, we took a big chunk out of the reserve fund for this Snorkel 5-7, and we should put that back in, and over a 10-year period might be a good plan. But I would like to consider money with money and look at the big picture.
Any other members at the table? Councillor Cullington?
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Martin that we do, it's a good idea to look at this repayment piece. It does make sense to look at it at budget time. And I wondered if you would consider slightly tweaking the wording of that amendment such that sort of direct staff to include this in budget considerations or wording to that effect.
I would.
Sorry, I was thinking. I'll think that through.
I would like, through you, Mayor, to our acting director of finance. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, there's a couple different ways we can come at that through the chair. I do agree with Councillor Day that a lot of this, I was planning on bringing it up at budget. That is the appropriate time. And just to caution council that, if you want to put more money into this reserve fund, it has to come from somewhere else. So we need to look at the big picture. And the other thing I am looking at, and it's just difficult to get it all done at once, is to do more of a 10-year capital plan versus a 5-year, because 5-year is not going out far enough.
Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, through the chair. I agree. I think it's important for us to replace this money, but it's also very important for us not to be making one-off budget decisions without the context of the larger picture. And I think that's something around this table we've said for the past 3 years over and over again. We didn't want to do that. So I support Councillor Cullington's request for a slight wording change to the recommendation, and urge Councillor Martin to consider this.
The reason, the reason I'm struggling with this is we are making a budget decision tonight. I mean, that's the reality of it. We're being asked to fund $325,000 that wasn't in the budget. So I find it a little ironic that we're saying, well, wait, let's not make a decision tonight. Let's wait till budget, well, we shouldn't decide on the fire truck then. If that's the argument that this council's suggesting, and I'm not suggesting that, Chief, just so you know, I'm saying let's get the truck. So, but I mean, it's a little ironic that we're saying, hey, let's look at this at budget time, but we're making some budget decisions this evening because we have underfunded ourselves by $325,000. We've got to find that. It's going to have to show up somewhere in the budget. That's the reality, right? We got to make up that $325. Either it comes out of the reserve, and then that puts us behind in our plan for 5 years, or wherever else. I just think the most prudent way is that when you're budgeting, it's an easy thing to say, okay, listen, we need to borrow the money from ourselves. We're going to borrow the money from ourselves at a 0% interest, and we'll pay it back over 10 years. I mean, that's why I'm struggling with this. This seems like it's a no-brainer. I'm worried that we get lost in the minutia of budget, and we're looking at $18 million, and we got budgets left, right, and center, and we're trying to get a 2.3% tax roll. And, well, this is easy. We'll just forget about replacing the $325,000 in that fund. I think it's better to be very clear, and that's just where I come from. So that's why I'm struggling with this about not deciding it now. But if you want to wait to budget, great. We'll let the next council decide.
Anyone else? Call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? All those not? So you're in favor? Yes. Not in favor? Okay, so passed anyways. 1, 2, 3, 4. On the main motion?
You got the majority for a change. Holy smokes, that's a small...
On the main motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, folks. Moving on to item 6.1.2, bylaw enforcement officer uniforms. Councillor Logan.
On that, we want $500 for new shirts. At our last Protective Services Committee meeting, the Municipal Enforcement Officer, Kevin Atkinson, provided the committee with an overview of his report regarding uniforms that are currently worn by the Colwood bylaw enforcement officers. The reason why it came up is there's been some discussions over the last number of months of whether the color and the type of uniform is appropriate. And so the Municipal Enforcement Division felt it was important to have that discussion at committee. The committee had a really good discussion, actually, back and forth, in the pros and cons of the current uniform. And, I think one of the members put it really well on the committee, who happens to be a Saanich police officer, that said, you know what, the color doesn't conflict with other enforcement agencies like the RCMP and police officers. In fact, he recommends that there is no change, and is quite supportive of the actual color. And there was also some discussion about the need to expend funds to change the color of the uniform. If it's working now, there would be a few $1,000s that we would have to shell out in order to convert the existing uniforms. We also had some discussion of, and there was a request about having a dress uniform for municipal enforcement officers to wear when attending a ceremony on the city's behalf. The committee during discussion felt that was probably best to be done at the budget discussions. Should the committee at the time feel it warranted to spend money on dress uniforms. So at the end of the day, it was recommended to council by committee, and I so move that no change be made to the color format of the bylaw enforcement uniforms at this time.
Second.
Council conversation, Councillor Lukens?
We can't do that because we just spent all the money on the fire truck.
Yeah, quite well taken.
But, sorry, Kevin. It concerns me that there has been a lot of ad hoc discussion about this, but there's never really been a formal discussion with council, the CAO, and the staff members to really have a discussion about why we may want to do this. And so for that reason, I did not support a change in the uniform color, et cetera, despite the fact I would like to see council have a discussion about what municipal enforcement officers should be doing, how we want them to conduct themselves, what that should look like, et cetera. So I think it's a bigger picture than just the uniform, personally. So I will be supporting the recommendation that's put before us from the committee.
Anyone else? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 6.2, Planning and Land Use Committee Report, Director of Planning, submission of final draft 2014 Colwood Economic Development Strategy. Lauren. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is a fun moment for me, and I know for council as well. We've got Lauren Millier flew all the way across country to meet with us tonight and discuss with us this bold new approach that Colwood's taking towards economic development. I'm going to quickly go over the results of our public consultation before handing it over to Lauren. So at the end of August of this year, Council received the draft Colwood Economic Development Strategy and directed staff to make it available to the public for comment. Staff advertised the opportunity for public input in local newspapers and via the city's website. We also met with local business owners at a coffee talk co-hosted by the West Shore Chamber of Commerce at City Hall last week. Several comprehensive submissions were made by the public, but staff also decided to reach out to stakeholders for additional input. Overall feedback was very positive, and staff feel that the ideas stemming from the public submissions can be addressed through the addition of an introductory message from the mayor and potentially council. We also think it can be incorporated into the additional actions flowing from the implementation plan. Staff have noted that there are several typos that were created when the original draft was converted to the city's graphic standard, and these will be corrected immediately. Next, I would like to call upon Lauren to address council before their opportunity to approve the final draft.
Thank you very much. Yes, I did fly cross country. My last chance. Are you not able to hear me?
Because
You can pull it off.
I like to move around, but we'll see.
No, you can
Take it off. Yeah.
Can
just
I?
pull it up. Yeah, there you go.
Break into song.
Maybe not.
Well, thank you very much. This is my last trip to Victoria, at least for the short term. But I suspect I'll be back again. It's been a wonderful experience working with this community. I have very much enjoyed it. Very much enjoyed this part of the country. So I'm going to take about 15-20 minutes because I really would like to get to any questions or comments that council has this evening. But I'm going to take 15 or 20 minutes just to highlight the process that we've gone through, highlight some of the findings that emerged from the strategy itself, and just bring into focus the goals and objectives that have been set for the plan and where we think some of the priorities lie for the municipality. So you said use the arrows on the computer. Okay, Ian. There we go. No, we're okay. So as I noted, what I'd like to do is just reflect on the objectives and the outcomes that we set for this process. Reflect a little bit on the summary of findings that emerged from the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, challenges, in large part because this combines our findings with the perceptions of the community and your community stakeholders. We identified a number of strategic priorities, which I will reflect on as well, and then the vision, statement, goals, objectives, and actions that underpin the strategy itself. And I want to speak a little bit at the end around the implementation, because although you should give yourselves a real pat in the back for having got this far, the easy part is done. Now you have to implement this. Now you need to find the partners and the resources and the time to make this happen. So very quickly, the objectives and outcomes that were set for the plan. And I always like to begin our process with a very clear understanding of what it is that we're trying to do in the development of an economic development strategy. And what was pointed out to us and what we articulated to you back in March when we began this process was that we needed a coordinated approach to economic development programming. that the plan itself needed to be premised on working collaboratively and cooperatively with municipalities, stakeholders, as well as your external partners. We needed to be able to build on the efforts of the community, the official community plan, which has been under review, as well as the transportation master plan, which was being done in conjunction at the same time as the economic development strategy. We also needed to ensure, and every municipality likes to ensure this, that you get a customized approach, not a cookie-cutter approach, to dealing with the challenges and the opportunities associated with economic development. The actions themselves need to contribute to lasting and sustainable growth. They need to focus on strategic investment of public and private sector resources, and they need to be measurable, relevant, and realistic. The strategy development process, as I noted, which began last March, involved doing a fairly extensive background and literature review. It also involved compiling an economic base analysis, as well as a pretty significant stakeholder consultation effort. And the appendices to the document that's in front of you this evening detail all of the findings and analysis that were done as part and parcel of this effort. We also did a community survey because I think it's important for the municipality, the community itself, to understand what it is that we're doing and some of their thoughts and impressions of living in Colwood, working in Colwood. And we also did a PESLD assessment and a SWOC assessment. And this was something new and different for us because normally we would do a SWOT and we would look at some of the external factors, but bringing this particular type of lens to it is not something that we've done in other communities. What I found very interesting about doing it here is it really helped to crystallize and understand some of the sustainability issues that were already beginning to emerge as part of our bigger, broader conversation. Lastly, then, we went through the strategy development process, and we've also built out a fairly detailed implementation plan at this point to help you understand who we think some of your community partners should be, as well as some of the resources we think need to be brought to bear on this as you look forward towards implementation. One of the things that we did want to point out, and I think I've echoed this all through this process, is there is no expectation that the City of Colwood is going to do this on its own. There is a network of economic development efforts already underway in the region, both at a municipal level and an organizational level. They are engaged locally and regionally in economic development activities that we think you need to be part of. We know, too, that new economic development partnerships are emerging, particularly as it relates to the Greater Victoria area, and these are partnerships that you have a seat at the table with. We believe that the municipality needs to be proactive and leverage some of these regional initiatives, and in particular the resources that are being brought to bear on some of these regional initiatives. The Greater Victoria Development Agency's economic development activities have to be considered because you simply will not have the resources necessary to do the type of investment attraction and marketing and promotional effort that you're going to want to do. And then lastly, there is opportunities for additional agencies and resources to come to the table. Many of them participated in this process through our stakeholder consultation. So just giving you the highlights from the SWOC analysis, and the SWOC, as I'm sure everyone knows, refers to the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, challenges that underpin and inform the development of the strategy. The PEST analysis that was done refers specifically to the political, environmental, social, and technological impacts, the external impacts that are having direct effect on the local economy. So from the perspective of strengths, what we see is a diverse and growing regional economy, and certainly looking out over the next 5 to 10 years, there's no reason to expect that would change. We know that there are partners and resources to support your economic development efforts. We know, too, that there is a planned regional transportation hub, which has a direct and lasting impact on the City of Colwood. There is a growing post-secondary presence, and those post-secondary institutions that we spoke to all have long-term plans for expansion, both in programming and in their footprint in the Greater Victoria area. We noted the unique natural setting and cultural amenities that are here, which really does distinguish you from some of the other communities along the West Shore. The development of Royal Bay, and I have followed this from the start with Ian's input, is a very strong market indicator for investors and in the strength of the community, I believe, long term. And I also think it is worth noting that the municipality's commitment to sustainability is something that is unique and different among the communities along the West Shore as well. Some of the weaknesses that need to be addressed or reflected in the strategy is the lack of profile that the Capital Region and the West Shore has. Vancouver dominates the discussion when we're talking about British Columbia. We know that infrastructure improvements are lagging growth. These are not necessarily things that you can directly impact, but they're certainly having an impact on your community. The lack of investment readiness at the local level and the vacant land and building availability limits your growth potential. Uncertainty is being created by the local development approvals process. At least that is what's being perceived by the development community that we spoke with. High property taxes are seen as eroding investment opportunities by comparison to surrounding communities, comparable communities across the West Shore. Another weakness that we've identified is the fact that you have a small base of employment, which obviously results in a high level of out-commuting. That's not to say that some of that can't be reversed, but at the moment, this is the situation we're faced with. We also note that there has been a general underinvestment in the public realm, which we believe has effectively undermined the quality of place in Colwood in recent years. The lack of a downtown contributes to the lack of identity that's associated with the city. Housing options do not reflect the needs of a broader demographic, and two, I would suggest the lack of a community vision has deterred investment as well. Some of the opportunities that did emerge from our conversation, greater collaboration to resolve these growth challenges. There is a dialogue that is emerging. There is some traction around some of these major issues that we're beginning to see. We've noted that there is an expanding supply chain resulting from investment in the region's shipbuilding industries, and the individuals in the Greater Victoria Development Agency went to great lengths to tell us just how many tens of dozens of new firms have emerged across the West Shore in recent years as a result of this. A growing technology sector is bringing profile to the Capital Region. And the master plan that's being developed for the city center and its gateways is to be commended as well. Revitalization tax assumption programs are available to support development, and the plan goes into some detail around what that might look like and how they might be used. We've also suggested that increasing support for all arts and cultural amenities, both within the city and within the West Shore, is something that can be more effectively leveraged. More outreach and better outreach with Royal Roads University, Camosun College, and the University of Victoria to support local business and education is also an element of the plan. Some of the challenges that we face in trying to move this plan forward, changes to the planning framework are going to take time. We know that. And I think it's really important to understand that economic development is a long-term exercise. This isn't something that you're going to be able to reverse or even change in a year or two. It requires a long-term commitment. The costs associated with sustainability policies have been raised as a concern for local business. Although they're quite supportive of the efforts that the municipality is making, they're nonetheless cautious with respect to how it will affect their businesses. The stalled capital city development continues to give a negative impression of the community, although I understand from Ian as speaking earlier that may yet begin to turn around in fairly short order. And ongoing budgetary and fiscal constraints at the local level. We know the budgetary constraints that the municipality is faced with. We know that looking at how we might implement this plan is going to take some short-term pain for some long-term gain, as it were. So the strategic priorities that are reflected in the plan is the need for strong civic and community leadership to build the relationships with economic development partners, business community, area municipalities, and local First Nations. Another priority was that economic development needs to become a core service for the city if it's to capitalize on the economic growth that's going on in the region. I caution anyone and any department who tries to do economic development off the edge of your desk. It just cannot be done effectively. We've suggested, too, that more effort needs to be directed at investment readiness, including a vision and a plan for the core as a focus for future investment, and to resist the urge to think that all will be fine because the Capital City Centre development is back online. There is a bigger vision, a bigger effort that is required, more context, shall we say, that is required. And we've also suggested that a strong planning framework and fiscal plan is essential to instilling confidence in the local and regional business community. Programming for business development and expansion is required, including greater support for small business and entrepreneurs. And this is really an essential element to this, because we know the level of engagement that they have with organizations like the West Shore. We know the level of engagement that they have with the Greater Victoria Economic Development Corporation. And we know that businesses are saying that they're not being given time and attention with respect to the opportunities associated in Colwood. Enhancement to Colwood's quality of place experience are needed, not just in the downtown, but other aspects of the community as well. And then lastly, that marketing and investment attraction efforts must improve and dovetail with the work of the West Shore Chamber, as well as the GVDA initiatives, in particular some of the investment attraction work that they have underway. We were asked to develop a vision statement for the economic development strategy. In this respect, we looked to the vision that had already been developed in the OCP and the work that had been done with the community in that regard. We have added to the vision that's in the OCP the statement here that our sustainable community is innovative and forward-thinking in its approach to economic development, reflecting both the needs of our business community and our desire for a balanced and sustainable approach to growth. The goals and objectives and actions that are in the plan, there are 3 primary goals, it's really important to understand what each goal, objective, and action represents. The goals themselves reflect the outcomes and aspirations that emerge from the strategic planning process. The objectives establish how the goals are going to be achieved, and the actions direct the city and its stakeholders to the steps that are going to address those essential issues and opportunities over the life of the plan. So the first goal is to foster partnerships that are going to advance economic sustainability. So the objective in this regard is to demonstrate leadership in advocating for and supporting collaborative economic development as a way to advance local priorities. And there are a number of actions in the plan, and I don't propose to go through those one by one. What I would, however, highlight that from our perspective, the key to successful implementation for this goal will be the positioning of economic development as a core service, whether that is done through the hiring of an economic development officer or a more, how do I describe this? I don't want to give you yet another job description, but a more determined effort on the part of those that are involved with economic development currently around the implementation of the plan. The second goal is to create an attractive and livable oceanfront community. And in this instance, the objective is to balance the need for growth with the community's unique cultural heritage and environmental values. The key to the successful implementation of this goal, from our perspective, is the completion of a downtown revitalization plan and a waterfront plan. The third goal is to provide a supportive environment for business and investment. And the objective in this instance is to enhance the city's competitive advantage for attracting and retaining local jobs and business investment. And again, the key that we believe to this goal is this having appropriate content, having state-of-the-art content and website for economic development as part of the municipal website, as well as doing a comprehensive business retention and expansion program. And the plan goes to some length to emphasize the fact that this is not a one-off. This is ongoing and regular engagement with your business community. So that's my very brief presentation, but I am more than happy to take any questions or observations on the part of the mayor and council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lauren. Members of council? Councillor Day?
Thanks. Big document to get through, and I've tried to get through every bit of it. And I think it does identify a number of the issues that we've been struggling with quite correctly. But what I find a little bit disconcerting about the plan is that it's going to cost what looks like a considerable amount of time and energy and probably tax dollars to accomplish it. It's quite an expensive plan to follow through on those goals. And what I'm not seeing is how do we determine that those dollars are worth it? Because the investment versus the payoff isn't anywhere documented in any way, shape, or form in the plan. Is that an option? How do you stack up? Some of it is what gets measured gets done. So, how are we going to measure what we're contributing versus what we're getting back for that investment?
Sure. Do you want to respond to this, or do you want me to? We can double team it. Do you want to start?
Certainly, staff acknowledges that this is an ambitious project, and the course of works has been acknowledged throughout this as being something we're investing in. So I think as an organization, we could be looking to the specific budget asks as being accompanied with business cases. So really an analysis of what the expectations are for payoff. And I'd be fully prepared to provide that when the time comes.
One of the things that we did do as part of our original piece of work back in May was to actually put together an implementation matrix that looked at, as I said earlier, the resources that would be required to do some of this work, as well as some of the partnerships or organizations that are out there that can support the work. I would suggest that this is not a very expensive plan, that in fact the work that is there, if there was an economic development officer in place that could champion or work to a lot of the recommendations that are here, that much of the plan could be dealt with on a day-to-day, year-to-year basis. I think it's important to recognize as well that the implementation matrix also lays out priorities, what we think needs to be done in the short term versus the long term. And we've also provided some direction around what we think the cost would be associated with some of the actions. Some of them we don't see it as being new resources because we're aware of what some of the partners and stakeholder organizations could be doing with you and on your behalf. So the larger, there is no doubt that there is recommendations in here for additional consulting work. And as a consultant, I always am a little reticent to recommend more consulting work. But I think that there are some significant components that are still missing from the community that would help to spearhead or champion economic development in the community. The flip side to that is in the absence of doing a downtown plan, in the absence of doing a waterfront plan, I think you miss a huge opportunity to actually define the kind of community that you want to be over the long term.
So I guess I'm wondering, because there's a lot of recommendations in here for everything from streetscaping in the downtown core to a plan for business in the downtown core development, also in the waterfront. So I guess I'm trying to envision how I support that to the community, because the residential taxpayer is going to have to bankroll that. So there's a lot of recommendations everywhere, from reducing commercial tax rates is one of the recommendations in the report. So that's going to hurt the residential taxpayer significantly. It's been a long time since that's been at the council table, probably about 15 years. But that's not going to come forward. Like, if we endorse this plan, I don't know how that's coming forward I don't know if I'm saying, I think this is a huge piece of work, and I think it needed to be done. But I'm not sure what recommendation I'm endorsing here.
Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, through the chair. If I can shed a little bit of light on this, the initial plans were to have a standing committee for economic development and innovation. That standing committee would then take the recommendations in the strategic plan, and this is what this is. It's a strategic plan that's providing strategic insight to the city. The standing committee will be responsible for doing a more robust implementation plan and bringing recommendations back to council through that committee. So each one of these recommendations will come through the standing committee, just like any other standing committee, and make recommendations to council. And then council at that point will have an opportunity to share their views and ideas and support it.
Thank you for that. Back on the stealing thunder part. Anyways, Councillor Logan.
Thank you, Worship. I don't know if everyone had the opportunity to see that CTV News story that aired this past week. That was one hell of a story that really painted a phenomenal picture of Colwood. And in fact, they said we're going through a boom. And they pointed at lots of different projects, and we can see them everywhere. And I think, that's a telltale sign in some confidence that's starting to build because of the attitude within the community. And I think that in itself will, with the new revenue coming from new construction, will help foster and develop these plans and finance these plans. And I really think, this is a roadmap. If we don't have a roadmap, then we go sideways. And when we go sideways, life sucks because we are just spinning our wheels and not getting much accomplished. And it's going to take a hell of a lot of work. There's no two ways about it, and I appreciate the clarification and the comments that Teresa made, because this is not the end of the line. It's only the beginning. And my feeling is that it's an investment. You got to spend some money to make some money. And it's funny because there was a lot of good comments on Twitter when this went out, and ranging from this is a model plan, great things are coming to Colwood, et cetera, et cetera. So, these are people that are actually outside of our community that have taken the time to read the plan and say, you know what, we're heading in the right direction. So, so I think it's fantastic, and I think the timing's right too, because if we do invest in hiring an economic development officer, a professional in the field, we've already got a solid base with an eager planning department and a communications manager that can partner and get that message out. I think this is like the perfect storm of goodness happening here. I don't want to be corny, but it's exciting. It's the perfect storm of goodness when you see the CTV story and then the Times Colonist, on and on and on, and they're looking at us, not them.
And if I may, when I was getting the car at the airport this morning, and the lady behind the counter said, "So what are you here for?" I said, "Oh, I'm doing some work in the area." And I said, and she asked me where, and I said I was going to Colwood. Colwood. Oh, wow, things are happening there. So this was the lady behind the car rental. And she doesn't live in Colwood, but things are happening there was her comment. So, to your point.
Councillor Cullington?
What was the expression? Storm of goodness? Wonderful.
Perfect.
Perfect storm. Perfect storm of goodness. I love it.
Welcome to Colwood, the perfect storm of goodness.
But I think Lauren's absolutely right. I think there is a sense that, Colwood is a very different place than it was even 5 years ago. There is a sense that we have changed as a community, that we are poised to do a lot of really interesting things. I think we've earned ourselves a reputation as a community that's willing to do things a little bit differently. Sometimes that involves a little bit of risk, which municipalities are not generally very good at. But I think we are, as Councillor Logan said, in a very good place to do this. I think it means we also need to really see this as an investment in our future. And yes, it will mean making some serious financial decisions. I think there are things like, looking at downtown economic revitalization. Are we prepared to do some tax holidays, some good deals in a way that kind of really shows that we are behind our downtown, and maybe that's going to involve moving City Hall down there. That might be a good thing to do. Again, so what are those things that we can take on board? So I do think we're going to, the next council, I should say, is going to have to be prepared to see that as an investment. One of the things I notice about the recommendation is it says we should approve the strategy, and we should do a happy message coming out from the mayor and council. But where in the recommendation does it say just get on with the implementation?
I think Ian took that part out.
So, just saying, we actually need to kind of give ourselves some specific actions. And it was very interesting. While everybody else was at UBCM, there was a meeting here that West Shore Chamber of Commerce hosted. It was great to see a number of businesses out. It was interesting hearing comments from some of those folks that Colwood Council doesn't always have a reputation as being real business friendly, and I think that's something we need to take on and become. A council not terribly far away from here, whenever there's a new business opening, they go out. All of council goes out en masse, they celebrate, they make the news story, they make it a big event. That new business feels welcome. That new business gets some nice free advertising out of this going on. I know we haven't had a lot of new businesses open in Colwood recently, but I think that's the kind of thing that doesn't cost a lot of money, but that does a lot of good. I think we have an opportunity with our communications manager to do some tweaks, changes to the website that start to move it in the direction that you're talking about. So I think, yes, we need to invest, but I think there are also some simple things and relatively inexpensive things that as a community we need to be thinking about. And I'd love to see that committee take on board, with this plan, take on board some of those and move that forward. And, I think you're right. I think there are a lot of partners out there who are just waiting to work with us if we show ourselves as kind of keen on doing that. And, that's a whole lot better than trying to do it on our own. So thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
Councillor Lugans?
Thank you, Your Worship. It was, the document is a fabulous read. It's very exciting and it's very motivating, and I want to say kudos to your team, to Ian, and I know Teresa have all spent a lot of time working together to make it happen. So I just want to say thank you very much. It shows. What was really telling for me is there was really nothing new that we haven't talked about over the water cooler, but it just put it in writing for us and has, as Councillor Cullington and Logan have said, given us the roadmap to make it happen. I don't see this as an expensive plan. I see this as a very workable plan, but we're going to have to reach out and build those relationships and the networks with the people that are going to help us make it do it. Yes, there will be an investment in getting an economic development officer, and I think Maple Ridge is a perfect community for us to look at that didn't have one about 10 years ago, and you look at that community today. Sandy Blue, who I have shared with Ian a few times to reach out to, has done an absolutely phenomenal job in driving business downtown, rebuilding that town, creating tax incentives, for building in certain areas, all that sort of stuff. And has it come out of the taxpayer's dollar? Probably some of it, but development and investment has created the economy there and taken it to new levels. So I think this is Colwood's time. What did you say? The perfect storm of goodness. The perfect storm of goodness. I just think, the next council, I don't think we've done a great job of it as this council of sitting down and really communicating what the vision is of this council. And I think that is a huge opportunity, because if we don't have the story to tell in an elevator pitch, there ain't no story out there. And that's where we're at right now. We're dangling on all 5 feet. So, yeah, at 5 feet.
Oh, at 5 feet.
Sorry. But I think there's a real opportunity for the team to come together, the council to come together and get that story and get the message out there, because that's what people need to hear, and they will come.
Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, through the chair. I just have a question with respect to the recommendation after, I can't remember who raised it, maybe it was Councillor Collington, with respect to where's the let's get on with it bit. And I'm through the mayor to the CAO, I was just wondering if it might be prudent for us to attach some timelines or some process into the recommendation so that staff are clear on where we want to go from here.
Just to reiterate some of Council's comments already, I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that staff are dealing with and have been dealing with. I think before we get too involved, I think the number one key recommendation is to hire an economic development officer, whether that's a full-time permanent position or just a contracted one-year position, just to kind of feel that out and maybe partner with Royal Roads University on analyzing the success of having the economic development officer to be a part of that process moving forward. I like to take small little bites moving forward. It is an investment. There is going to be a capital outlay. When we talk about lowering commercial taxes, I think that's going to be over several years of building up that business community and building up that additional business assessment so we can take in more revenue, so that in turn it's not going to affect our residential. But we need to look at least 5 years out. As part of a plan moving forward, looking at strategic objectives of council, that'll be something that'll be taken up with the new council as well and make it part of the budget process as well.
Ian?
I'd just like to add that by approving this, council is pushing the go button in terms of what staff's going to be doing and expecting. And to be honest, we've been laying the groundwork for a lot of these actions for some time now. In discussions with James, talking about having a series of proposals ready for council through the 2015 budget process. So we are already doing that work. Please trust that we really do, on the staff side, like this plan. It sets some really exciting and fun projects ahead of us. So we're looking forward to it.
And I think it's been, the exercise that we've undertaken and the cost incurred to create this, although we may not have made great steps forward as this council in this particular aspect, it gives the groundwork there for the Economic Development Committee to step forward and round that up and start setting some targetable process in there. So I'm looking forward to it. Councillor Martin?
I just wanted the motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Lauren, I really do want to say thank you to your team of folks that were here and engaged with us, and all the work that you undertook and the number of trips. And I know you're coming back because you said you had never been here, and oh my goodness.
I really have enjoyed my trips out and my time in the community. So yes, I will certainly be back. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Moving on then to item 6.22, Development Variance Permit DVP 14008, 372 Maywell Place.
If Councillor Sullivan can take it, I was not here, that would be great.
Excuse, what?
Okay, this is Development Variance Permit DVP 14008, 372 Maywell Place. Who are requesting to vary section 5.6.063 of the Land Use Bylaw number 151, reducing the allowable rear yard setback from 7.5 meters to 5.1 meters in order to facilitate the construction of an addition over the existing garage on the northeastern side of the existing single-family dwelling. And it be recommended to council that this Development Variance Permit number DVP 14008 be authorized for issuance, which would have the effect of varying the minimal allowable rear yard setback requirement pursuant to section 5.6.063 of the Land Use Bylaw number 151 from 7.5 meters to 5.1 meters on the property described as Lot 6, Section 36, Esquimalt District Plan 13088-372 Maywell Place.
Conversation, discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. 6.2.3, Development Variance Permit DVP 14009 for 3468 Hopwood Place. Again,
This was,
Councillor
yes,
Sullivan?
thank you. Let me see, the applicant, let me back up here. The application is requesting to vary section 5.6.054 of the land use bylaw number 151, increasing the maximum allowable floor area ratio requirement from 0.4 to 0.45 in order to facilitate the construction of a new single-family dwelling. The purpose of the variance is to gain a little extra square footage on the top floor and that there will be no increase to the overall building footprint. So it's recommended to council that the DVP 14009 be authorized for issuance, which would have the effect of varying the maximum allowable floor area ratio pursuant to section 5.6.054 of the land use bylaw number 151 from 0.4 to 0.45 on the property described as Strata Lot 18, Section 63, Esquimalt District, Strata Plan V, is that a 1?
VI.
VIS 7142, 3464 Hopwood Place.
You were the mover on that, Councillor Sullivan?
Yes.
Okay. And second, questions, comments? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Moving into Parks, Recreation and Culture, 6.3, 6.3.1, actually Legacy Gifts Policy. Councillor Day?
Thank you. Staff have been undertaking a review of our legacy gifts policy, particularly with regard to legacy benches, and they've brought forward changes to the committee, and it was recommended by the committee, and I would so move that the new and replacement park benches be constructed with recycled plastic and the city's logo stamped in, that the cost of the public of installing a memorial bench be set at $1,000, which includes a 5-year maintenance fee with an option to renew this contract, that an option to install a memorial plaque on an existing bench at a lower fee be included in the legacy gifts policy, and that any purchase fee, maintenance fees, renewal periods, and other quantifiable variables be included as a schedule to the policy, Legacy 001, Legacy Gifts, and that the cost and maintenance for installing a bench in the Royal Bay area be included in the schedule attached. And
Councillor Lukens?
Thank you. Just a question with respect to the first line of the recommendation that the replacement park benches be constructed with recycled plastic. Did I steal your thunder? I just would like to know, I don't like the benches that we have today, particularly at the bus stops. So is this what that is going to look like, or can you advise me differently, please?
the bus stop benches are completely different.
Good.
The benches that are in our parks that are down by Esquimalt Lagoon, along the perimeter pathway, have all, I believe they have all now been redone, where they had been done with cedar planks before, and now they're being used the recycled plastic wood, which has much greater durability and longevity. So that's really the basic change, and we're keeping to a uniform style so that replacement parts can be the most affordable.
And they're slatted, if I recall correctly.
Right.
Okay, good enough. I was losing sleep over that last night.
Any others?
I know.
Yeah.
Councillor Day, on the Schedule 1,
Yes?
last page of that report, where it indicates City of Colwood benches, the bottom item under there is cost for installing a plaque on an existing picnic table. Should that not read bench, because the picnic tables are under the next? In the red, very last page. Keep going. think it's just,
Under Schedule 1?
yeah.
I believe that is the cost for installing a plaque on a picnic table, because we also have picnic tables down at well, we actually
Yeah,
only
but if
have
you-
one so far, but at Esquimalt Lagoon, and it's anticipated that we could have a donation.
I understand, but if you look at the two headers, City of Colwood benches and City of Colwood picnic tables, the last item on one says picnic tables in benches, and the first one in picnic tables says bench.
Okay, I see there was a typographical error. It should be in the other list.
Yes, that's
So-
my point, is so
Okay.
whoever's monitoring that going forward. Do you see where it is, Pat?
Just moving it under picnic tables instead of under benches.
It's the same number,
It's the same number.
same cost, 540.
Yeah, you just need to identify, because the one says cost for installing a plaque on an existing bench is $432 under the picnic tables list. Cost for installing a plaque on an existing picnic table is $540. Which is it? Need to know. Hello.
I'm trying to
Help me.
I'm trying to see.
You got it?
I could sort of have it. Picnic table is in benches.
See this
where it says benches?
It's just a cut and paste.
Benches.
Yeah.
That's
Really?
bench, that's
Why
bench,
are we
that's
talking
picnic
about
table.
this?
Yeah, so
This
it
is
should go
picnic
down.
table, that says bench.
Oh,
Picnic
yeah.
table, picnic table.
Yeah.
That number is different than that number, so
My
what
good
is
God.
it? Where,
It's 20 after 8.
do they both go, do the numbers go, what's the number?
Right.
Wowzers.
I would have to ask staff what
So
the
just-
numbers should be.
Yeah, so just a point to note, so that before we get into the finalization of that schedule, that we have the appropriate numbers to go along with the right item. That sound good?
Yeah. Staff would have to advise me, but I believe that without the correct version here, I guess we could update the schedule at another meeting and accept everything else.
I think you can just tell staff, fix
Fix
it.
it.
That's,
Really?
That's what I did.
that's,
Yeah.
Nora will fix it. It shall be done. And you can move ahead approving it, knowing it will be fixed.
Yes.
Okay,
Fair enough?
far enough?
Are we good with that?
Yep.
Folks? So we have the motion on the floor and a seconder, so we know that staff are going to fix that. So we are calling question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Sorry to have been such trouble, but it just didn't make sense to me. Finance and Admin Committee, 6.4, 6.4.1, report municipal enforcement officer, unsightly premises at 3041 Chantel Place. Mr. Atkinson, are you reporting to us? I've
Oh, I
seen
don't
those
need it.
already.
I could see the pictures. Oh, why we wasted the ink on the lovely pictures. I want this.
Through the chair.
To go steal that. Cherry picking.
On?
Yeah, it's on.
I know.
Through the chair, you have a report before you for 3041A Chantel Place. We've attended the property several times over the last few years regarding unsightly premises at different occasions. The property was visited, and it was deemed that the property was unsightly. An inspection was done, and a letter was mailed on July 8th, 2014, to facilitate cleanup no later than September 1st, 2014. Follow-up inspection was done on September 3rd and confirmed that the property remains in an unsightly condition, and the photos of the property are attached. So you can see the photos in front of you. There is a large amount of debris. As a result of that inspection, a letter was hand-delivered the same day advising council will be considering this matter as an unsightly premise at the meeting of September 29th, 2014, and give consideration to ordering the property to be cleaned up at the owner's expense pursuant to the unsightly premise bylaw number 715/2003. There's also some new photographs that are with your package as well. These photographs were taken today. The items have been rearranged and reorganized, but they are still there. Moving from one side of the yard to the other, putting into a bigger pile. There has been no real attempt to clean up the property. So it does remain, as of today, in an unsightly state.
Move the recommendation, Your Worship. Not to cut you off, but you're very convincing.
Comments and questions by members of council? Councillor Day?
Just wondering if this is a similar issue that we've dealt with before of perhaps the person needing some assistance, or?
Through the chair, this is a completely different scenario. This property has been visited since I have been here at least a half a dozen times. This is not a mental health issue. This is just somebody that's not caring. And this person has made promises to the officer, has failed to meet the deadlines. We have given them every opportunity, and we are cognizant of those issues.
Okay.
And we're not sensing that. What we're sensing is this is just an untidy place.
Anything else? Anybody? Staff?
Because staff have been back to this property repeatedly, I'm just wondering if it may be worthwhile to utilize our resources that we used on the last citizen just to explore the opportunities. As our staff really, I don't know that they're qualified to make medical assessments of people, but I think we should maybe notify the proper people that can maybe play a part in this so that we don't have to go back another 6 times in the next several years?
I understand that this one is completely different capacities in there and whatever. Council, anybody else? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. 6.4.2 CRD Animal Control Services Agreement. Recommendation coming from Councillor Martin?
Yeah, thank you. So just as a quick reminder, everybody, this was, we went through the process of looking at several possible providers for animal control. And if you remember, we did select the CRD. The contract has come up for renewal for September 30th, 2014. And under the sole source purchase exemption clause number 6, we just need to make sure that we approve this for 2015-2016. You can see that there will be a cost of $60,800 for 2015, $61,200 for 2016. I'm not going to bother reading the whole recommendation. I'm hoping you've all seen it, and I will so move it.
Conversation, discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to 6.4.3, Communications Policies Procedures. Again, Councillor Martin?
I'd like to actually defer this to our CAO for discussion.
Mr. Muller?
Sorry, I caught you off guard. I could do it. Do you want me to do it? Okay. Sorry, I should have given you a warning. This is just basically the communications plan. I'm hoping you've all had an opportunity to look at the plan that Sandra created. It was looked at several times at FAC and felt quite comfortable with it, so that, and also move that the draft communication policy procedures for citizen complaint, internal communications, external communications, public participation, media reports, and social media as presented at the September 15th, 2014 Finance Administrative Committee before to Council. Oh, sorry. So I'm asking for you guys to adopt it.
Discussion, Council? Councillor Sullivan and then Dave?
Thank you. Through the mayor, I just want to commend our CAO and staff and any council members who were involved in this. This is something that I've been hoping that we could get together, get done since day one on council. And I'm just absolutely thrilled with the work that's done. I wouldn't change a word, and I support it wholeheartedly.
Councillor Day?
I just wanted to echo also my thanks to our communications officer for the excellent job that she's done. She did bring forward a very extensive report the first time that Finance and Administration Committee had a look at, and they recommended a few changes, suggested a few things that maybe should be thought about. She took it away. Took her a while because I know she has a lot of things on her desk. But what she brought back, infinitely better. And I mean, we didn't say make this infinitely better. We said change this and that. And she came back with something infinitely better. So I really think she did an excellent job.
Councillor Lugans?
I echo all of those things, and I just would like to commend everyone that is giving input on this as well. And it's great that Sandra's able to take it all and absorb it and put it into layman's language and make it easy for everybody to understand. So kudos to everybody, and an extended kudos to Sandra for her dedication and commitment to the city and community.
It provides a guideline for going forward and consistency when we have to deal with these issues that hopefully will seldom arrive, but nonetheless it will give us that backbone to work with. So we have a motion before us on this one. Recommendation?
Yes, we did.
And all done. Call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6.4.4, 2013 and 14 tax sale update. Councillor Martin?
Thank you. We had our tax sale actually today, and hence the reason I'm going to defer to our acting director of finance for
Yes, she
the
has
update.
an update.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Martin. So we did whittle the list down, which was a little bit scary and long the last time you saw it, and we did have 5 properties that went up for sale today. 2 of them we did not receive any bids on the upset price, so that means that the city is the purchaser. And we did sell 3 of the 5 properties. And this sale went smoothly, and I don't really think there's going to be any issues normally. I think a question that came forward before, and it came from the audience today as well, is when properties are sold at tax sale, is there any that are never redeemed? And we couldn't find any for a very long time in the history of the city here. Usually, people have the year and they do step up and redeem them.
Thank you. So I'll just make a motion to receive.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. 6.4.5, 2015 permissive tax exemption update. Again, Councillor Martin.
Ready to do that? Yeah, I will defer to our acting director of finance.
All right. Further to that, the issue here is that we had asked council that the deadline for the 2015 permissive tax exemption submissions be extended from September 1st to September 30th. And that's to do with one property formerly called the Queen Alexandria Foundation, 345 Whale Road. And I actually have a report in front of me that said they supposedly the application's in the mail, and frankly, if it's not here by end of day tomorrow, they've missed it. Because we have been pursuing them, I'm actually quite surprised at the difficulty that staff has had to get this application in hand, because it's a significant savings to them by simply filling out the application.
Councillor Day.
Thank you. Just a question. Did you contact Mitzi Dean?
Did we, sorry?
Contact Mitzi Dean from the Pacific Center Family Services Association, with whom we contract for counseling services?
I will make a note of that. We didn't realize, or I know between myself and the deputy, I don't think we were aware of that. We have been dealing with somebody called Dana at it's now called Children's Health Foundation.
Yeah, Children's Health Foundation is the owner of the building. Pacific Center Family Services Association is one of the not-for-profit organizations that operates and rents from them in the buildings. So if they did not receive their permissive tax exemption, then they would be forced to pay a higher amount of rent because they would be paying. So in fact, and then they would come back to us looking for
Yes.
more money.
Yes.
Because how else would they offer their services? So I think that if you're having difficulty, I can certainly provide you with contact info for Mitzi, who could maybe help you connect with the right people.
Thank you very much, Councillor Day. I do have her contact information, and we will follow up on that tomorrow.
Need the recommendation?
Yeah, so just as a housekeeping, we do need to increase the 2015 permissive tax exemption from September 1st to September 30th, and also move that. Excuse me, hold on. Is that deadline for 2015 or 2014? I think it should be for 14.
We need to have it in hand by tomorrow in order to grant the exemption for next year. But they've, the...
So,
Yeah.
okay.
But 2014
okay,
is
thank you.
correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second.
Any further questions, comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Moving into Transportation and Public Infrastructure Committee. Councillor Cullington, 6.5.1, report city engineer or environmental impact study for disposal of treated water from a Colwood Resource Recovery Center. Yourself or... Michael?
As discussed in a report on the council agenda at the last meeting, the city has an obligation to cease its discharge of untreated sewage into the Strait of Juan de Fuca by 2020. Through bylaw 2312, CRD bylaw 2312, that was, we effectively delegated that to the CRD. And they have spent about $2.6 million of Colwood taxpayers' money and are currently thwarted in their attempts to build anything. It does appear, based on what's going to an October the 8th meeting of Core Area Liquid Waste Management Committee, that the CRD is in the process of effectively delegating the business of finding a location and perhaps even building the plant back to the municipalities. Of course, the City of Colwood had already proposed undertaking our own works to deal with the untreated sewage. And that concept was put to the public in April, and more than 70% of the people that attended the meeting supported the idea. But many of them wished to know the cost. And what I'm recommending tonight is a significant part of trying to define what that cost would be. That's because whatever the whatever else we do with sewage, there has to be a way of disposing of the treated water. Some of the treated water can be reused if it's treated sufficiently, but that use will grow slowly, and in the immediate aftermath of completing a plant, you need somewhere to dispose of the treated water. You also need somewhere to dispose of water that goes out of spec if the treatment plant is not operating 100%, which tends to happen within the the first year or two as the plant gets the kinks out of it, and the operators learn exactly what it's capable of. Any method of disposal requires an environmental impact study by a consultant before the Ministry of Environment will consider it for approval. So the request for proposals broke the EIS into three parts, and companies were invited to bid on the three parts separately, or put in proposals on the three parts, I should say. So they were in-ground disposal. I've said stream augmentation, but actually it's all reclaimed water, and then ocean outfall or marine outfall. This RFP is for stage one or desktop studies only, because if you can get a really positive result out of a stage one study, you may not need to do stage 2, or it may lower the requirements for the stage 2. So we didn't want RFPs on stage 2 until we've defined whether we really need them or to what extent we need them. The most economical method of disposal, we feel, and the simplest to construct, is likely to be the in-ground disposal. So that's why that's top of the recommendation list. This has been approved by the Ministry of Environment elsewhere, and has also failed to get approval in circumstances where the ground is unfavorable. But we have very, very favorable circumstances here. So we're reasonably confident about that. The reclaimed water can include irrigation, toilet flushing, stream augmentation, or wetland enhancement, for instance. And tertiary treated water can be used for irrigation and toilet flushing normally without any additional treatment. In the case of stream augmentation, there might be more treatment involved because you're going to get the nutrients out, whereas in irrigation it doesn't matter, it actually helps. Wetland enhancement would depend. But the EIS for reclaimed water can help define what our revenues might be. So just to illustrate where that could be used, Colwood Creek above Souk Road is actually dry right now because the Royal Colwood Golf Course is taking out so much water to do irrigation that it's dried up the creek, which is not a great circumstance. And while the North Island has had their low flow advisory lifted for their creeks and rivers, the Lower Island is still in a drought condition, a fairly serious drought condition. Last I was told, Cowichan River was still not flowing enough water to reopen the mill, despite the recent rains. That just illustrates the level of drought that we're facing on the Lower Island and have been for about a decade now. So that might be one of the useful things that can be got out of sewage treatment, is to help Colwood Creek. A marine outfall is the option for ground disposal that we'd like to avoid, as it's the most expensive, and that's why it's important to know if we actually have to go in that direction. As we've talked about before, there's a possibility that Langford may wish to dispose of its sewage through Colwood's treatment plant, and certainly to have any meaningful discussions with with Langford about the cost. We need to define this issue. So I've provided the tables below, which show the scores on the various parts. I should note there was only one company that bid on all three. These show the technical score, which is rating the proposal, and then the fee, which was opened later after we'd done the technical proposal score. And then we've used the two to create an overall score. And in the case of the in-ground disposal works, Payne Engineering had the highest technical score, but the second highest cost. The evaluation team felt that in terms of what the city requires out of the work and what represents the greatest overall benefit to the city, that Payne Engineering is recommended for this part of the work. And that's because their very detailed experience with in-ground disposal and their familiarity with the ministry's requirements in this area was very well demonstrated in their proposal. In the case of the reclaimed water scores, Golder had the highest technical score by a significant margin, but they also had the highest price. Nevertheless, we feel that Golder represents the best overall value. They're extremely well known in reclaimed water field. They have a great deal of knowledge. In the case of the marine outfall, Great Pacific was not only the best technical score, but they were the cheaper fee as well. So that's why we recommend them there. So the dealing with the financial implications, the budget for the project to March 2015 is $350,000, and so far in the first 7 months that says 6 months. That's because it's cut and paste of the last report, and it didn't update the number of months. We've spent approximately $45,000, and we're committed to a further $8,000 at this point. And I've listed there where the money has been spent. And we do not, at this point, anticipate spending more than 2/3 of the budget by March 2015, including these recommendations. And we're recommending that Council authorize the Mayor and CAO to execute a contract for the in-ground disposal EIS with Payne Engineering Geology in the amount of $51,000, and execute a contract for the reclaimed water disposal EIS with Golder Associates in the amount of $47,461, but not award the contract for the marine outfall disposal EIS, at least until the results of the in-ground disposal are in, and the matter has been considered again by Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion, Council? What's that? Any further conversation, discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into bylaws 7.1, bylaw number 1552, first and second readings only. Colwood Land Use Bylaw number 151, 1989, Amendment 142, text amendment, daycare use, bylaw number 1552, 2014.
Move introduction.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Bylaw number 1553, first and second again, only on Colwood Official Community Plan. Bylaw number 999, 2008, Amendment number 8 for 2350 and 2356 Souk Road.
Move introduction.
All those in favor? Opposed?
Second.
Motion is carried. We're going second and second. Discussion. There will be discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Day.
Thank you. I would just like to point out that the subject property map, and I did send an email about this earlier today, looks incorrect. It shows Cecil Blogg Drive connecting to Veterans Memorial Parkway, which it does not.
Through the chair. And first off, apologies, Councillor Day, I didn't get a chance to respond to you. I did get a chance to discuss things with our engineer department, and that map accurately reflects the road layout as it stands with what we call the cadastral map, which is the property boundaries. So this is an accurate reflection of that, and it's generally what we use for bylaws in Colwood.
I would just comment that I really think that our mapping should show accurately what the actual situation is for access and egress to properties, and because that is my concern with this property, is the access and the egress. It is on a busy intersection corner, and it's not just a small issue, it's a big issue.
Any further comments or questions? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Bylaw number, where are we here? Making sure we're on the right one. 1554, first and second readings only. Colwood Land Use Bylaw number 151, 1989, amendment number 144 for CD 23 zone, 2350 Souk Road and 2356 Souk Road. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Move second.
Any questions, comments? I guess
It's the same.
Same
so
property,
I have the
same questions?
I remain having the same concern.
Calling the question, then, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to move in camera? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.